Hey guys, it's Charlene. I'm excited to share this fun project with you using the new Lovely Layers cooler. This has all the pieces, even the ice and the cute little drink bottles and cans to create a fun layered cooler. So I've cut out all the pieces in white cardstock. I'm not going to use this one right now, but I'm going to show you what it's for later. I'm going to start by coloring the base here, which is the bottom of the cooler. And I'm going to color this kind of in a darker aqua color. I'm going to get a good all over color here until it's completely colored. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to use the edge of my sponge in order to add some shading around the edges. This will make those edges darker. It'll help it to appear more 3D. Now, even though you're not going to see all of this cooler, I make a habit of when I'm coloring things to just go ahead and do the whole thing. Now I'm going to come in and color the top here in more of a teal color, and again go all the way around the edges. It really does help adding that edge shadow to create that 3D dimension to your cards. Now for this piece, which is the rim of the cooler, I'm going to use that same exact teal color. I left my little clasps white, and I'll show you two different ways you can put together the cooler. So you can have it so that it's closed, and in order to do that you would take this white piece here and you would put it over the top of this lip piece right here, and that's going to go right where it fits at the top of the cooler. And then your cooler is going to look like it's closed, and you would add your clasps right along the front here so it looks like they're attaching the lid to the lip of the cooler. Now, if you want to do an open cooler, which is what I'm going to do, you do things a little bit different. So I'll start by taking my ice here and I'm just going to glue it along the back of this piece. So I'll add a little bit of glue along the bottom edge of the ice. Then once I have added my glue, I can go ahead and take that lip piece and glue it right over the edge of that ice. So the ice looks like it's setting back behind there. You could do this part before you put it together, but I do want my ice to have a little bit of blue coloring to it. So I'm just going to come in now with my alcohol ink marker. This is a B 2.0, and I'm going to run it just over the areas of the ice that have some embossing. So that'll really make the ice look more 3D. It's a little hard to see on camera, but it adds this nice little dark tint of blue to those embossed areas. Since this is going to be an open cooler, you do need to trim off the top portion here where the handle would be. It's really easy to do. I'm just going to come along this line with my scissors and trim off the top piece so that way you don't see it. Then I'm going to add glue to the back of this piece, and I'm going to glue along this whole front portion right here, and then I can line it up right with the embossed detail on the cooler. So it fits right on there, really easy. And to make this look like it's popped up, I'm going to add a couple of thin foam squares back behind here. I talk more about this later. But you can see where I put this on top, it's going to now have some dimension there, and our cans will be back behind there. I'm not going to attach it yet, but I do want to go ahead and create the cans so that way I can see kind of how everything is going to go together. I can add my little clasps though, so I'm just going to add a few little bits of glue on the back there, and you want to add it on the part that's thicker. That's going to fit right on the embossed area. I am going to add a few of the larger foam squares to the back while I have them out. And now I can die cut all of my drink cans and bottles. I'm going to cut out 2 of each of these so that way I have a variety to color. I'll bring in a nice rainbow of colors here. I've colored 2 in pink and then 2 in yellow and 2 in a different green. Now, remember I mentioned about the foam squares, so I do wish I had waited to add the little foam squares on the top strip just because I do want to glue my bottles to the back of the ice rather than to the cooler lid. That's just a personal preference. It looks cool either way, but I just carefully peeled off those little foam squares so that I can go ahead and glue the bottles to the back of my ice. So just keep that in mind whenever you are creating a layered card like this, that sometimes it might be better to wait until you have all the pieces so that way you can decide where you want them positioned. Now, it would also look really cool to glue some of those directly to the cooler lid and some to the back of the ice, so that way they are at differing dimensions on the card. That would look cool as well. I'm going to bring those foam squares back in here, and I'm just going to put them back along that line, and then I'm actually going to add a few as well behind the bottles and cans, just so that they have some support on them, and that way they don't get smushed if they go through the mail. So now I'll remove the release tape where the bottles and cans are. So carefully line it up just so that the edges of the lip meet the edges of that bottom part of the cooler lid. I do want this to lay flat on the card, so I'm actually deciding here that I need to bring in a couple of strips of scrap cardstock. So I've brought in a strip here, and I'm going to get 2 layers. I'll glue these together, and then I can stick them to the back of those foam squares on the bottom of the cooler. So that will make it so that it's completely even on my card. It probably wouldn't be super noticeable if I didn't do that, but I'm a bit of a stickler about that kind of stuff, so I wanted to make sure it was nice and flat on the card front. To add some fun details to this card, I'm actually also going to bring in a second set from the new release. This is the Lovely Layers at the Beach. So many cute items. I've cut out the hat, the towel, and the flip-flops. The flip-flops are absolutely adorable. So I'm going to color these in a couple of different colors, again with my sponge applicator here, and it's really easy to do. I'm going to make my towel orange, and I'll go around the edges just like I did for the other items. I'm going to go with a very light warm gray for the hat, and I'm going to make the bottom piece darker than the top piece. Go around the edges as well, and for the flip-flops, I'm going to bring in some blue. I'm going to leave the little tops, oh gosh, they're so cute. I'm going to leave those white, and then I will go around the edges on the flip-flops as well. So there's a couple of little embossed dots on the flip-flops. That's where you would add just a touch of glue, and then I'm going to bring in my wax. Oh no, actually I'm going to bring in my tweezers. I thought I'd bring in my wax tool. I guess I decided not to. But I'll bring in my tweezers here, and I'll just carefully line up the top of the flip-flop to the base. For the hat, it fits right on top of there. You know, Honeybee does such a great job with their layering sets that it's always really easy to figure out how things layer together. This just lines up along the top of the hat. I have my card base, and I'm going to actually do some coloring directly on my card base. I don't do this very often, but I really love the way this looks. So to protect the back of my card base, I've actually added a little strip of masking tape there, and now I have just a piece of scrap white cardstock, and I'm just going to cut a natural line along the edge. Now in the end, most of this doesn't end up showing, so it's kind of irrelevant, but that's what I did. If you were just using some of the items from the Lovely Layers at the beach set, then more of this would show. So I'm getting a sense here of how far up I want my pretty sandy beach to go. So I think this looks pretty good. So then I'll just add some removable tape to the top of my scrap piece so it doesn't move around. I've got a nice light tan ink here. I'm going to get a little bit on my brush, and I will build up. It's much easier to add color, obviously, than it is to take it away. So anytime I'm doing a beach in particular, I go really light at first. So you can see now I've brought in some more color, and I do want this to fade off towards the bottom of the card. that looks pretty good. Let me get my sentiments out here. This is the Sunkissed Summer Stamps and Dies. Some really awesome beach theme sentiments. I really like this one here. It goes perfectly with the cooler. It says, I'll bring the cooler. So it's great for any kind of friendly hello style card to someone. I am going to stamp this out twice, and I'm going to stamp it right on the card base. I could have used the dies and popped this up, but I wanted the sentiment to be set back on the beach with the cooler kind of taking the show. So I did a second stamping on there, and you can see it has a really nice fine line script. I've arranged everything where I want it to be, and I'm going to do some reverse gluing. Lately, this has been my preferred way of putting together cards. So I take the topmost piece, add a little bit of glue to the back, and then I grab my tweezers and I set it down on the very next piece, and then I pick that up and I can add glue to the back of that. Makes it much easier to layer up your card. You add it to the cooler. Next, I've got the hat. That's the next piece that would be kind of from front to back. So I can glue my hat on. I am going to pull my towel out there real quick. Add glue all the way to the back of the cooler, and then make sure I get it nice and lined up straight on the card. And you can see now what I mean about a whole lot of that line is actually not showing. Now for the little hat, I am going to add some support after the fact. I'm going to put a foam square with a couple of pieces of scrap cardstock just behind that left corner of the hat to help it remain stable on the card. Once I've got my cooler down, now I can just go ahead and glue my towel in there and just tuck it right behind the edge of the cooler. And once I like where it is, I can go ahead and press that down. Now I can add a few detail accents. So I'm bringing in some warm gray, some WG1, and I'm just going to dot around here and there. No real rhyme or reason, really soft hand here, and that's going to really make this look like sand. This tiny little additional detail that could be easily overlooked, I feel like really takes the card up a notch. And I'm going to put a few dots of WG3, which is a darker warm gray, here and there. Less with the WG3, just enough to really kind of say, oh, that is beach sand. Now I'll bring in my white gel pen, and I'm going to run this along a lot of the embossed details of the pieces. I'm going to start on the towel, and you can see that just brightens up those embossed details, makes them more noticeable. In particular on the hat, adding the white gel pen to the embossed details really, I think, brought that hat up a notch. It just looks really awesome. And I just went along the lines of the hat with that on both the top layer and the inside layer. I had a couple extra of those cans hanging out in bottles, so I decided to glue them on the inside of the card to add a fun little touch in there as well. All right, guys, that finishes up my card. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.